Welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast, a Su Madre production.
What's up, Space Dreamers? Thank you so much for joining me in this incredibly exciting episode. This is yet another episode in my series where I interview indie game developers. This is a fun thing that I'm doing. I love video games. I am a gamer, and I love alternative forms of storytelling, which I think video games, and more so indie video games, are able to give us. Today's episode, we are interviewing Jan Bubenik, who is one of the co-founders of Megagon Industries, which is based in Berlin, Germany. And the game we are talking about, the game that I played, and the whole reason that I reached out to Jan and Megagon, is called Lonely Mountains Downhill. It is a mountain biking video game. There have been mountain biking video games before, but none quite like this. And on my journey to become a better indie game developer interviewer, I am learning and getting better at what I'm doing here. So in this case, Jan turned me to the press kit for this game. So rather than rambling on and explaining what it is, I'm going to read a summary. This is all about Lonely Mountains Downhill. Just you and your bike versus the rocky peaks of the Lonely Mountains. Lonely Mountains Downhill is a Lowpoly style mountain biking game released on PC, Windows, Mac, and Linux, as well as Xbox One and PlayStation 4 on October 3rd, 2019. The Nintendo Switch port was released on May 7th, 2020. That is the port that I played. The Lonely Mountains are waiting for you. Explore rocky mountain slopes with your bike, jump over sandy gorges, or find your way through the foggy forests. Each lonely mountain awaits you with new challenges. Sprint, jump, and slide to find your way to the finish line. Explore the detailed mountain worlds or face the ticking clock. With every success, you unlock new bikes, paintwork, and outfits piece by piece. Train your skills day and night, improve your place on the leaderboards, and ultimately compete with the best riders in the world in the risky free ride mode. So that's kind of just a little description, introduction of the game. I was fortunate enough, as I said, to interview the co-founder of Megagon Industries, which is the indie developer of Lonely Mountains Downhill. I had a really cool conversation with Jan. He's a really cool guy. Talked about, mountain biking outside of video games, mountain biking in video games, how this game came about. It started as like a skiing game, and then it turned into like the mechanics that were used there turned into this mountain biking game. It was really interesting learning about how leaderboards work in games. And just, there's this thing in games now, like really good games are ones that are really challenging, but also where the rewards meet the challenge. It's like when you finally overcome, it's like a true sense of accomplishment. And I think this game does a really, really good job of that. I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I played it on Switch. And the other thing that's pretty important to emphasize here is that the Switch version is probably the least powerful version. It's the least powerful system that the game is run on, and yet I still think that the game looks gorgeous. So if you were to play it on PS4 or the Xbox or the PC, it's only going to look better. And it's just a really cool game. I don't think that too much more introduction is needed, but you can check out Megagon Industries on Instagram. You can also go to their website. There is a trailer out right now for there's a whole new mountain in Lonely Mountains that they released as DLC, which looks totally awesome. I haven't played it yet, but it looks totally cool. So check that out. Go to their website, which is lonelymountains.com, and you can see all this cool stuff. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jan Bubenik, co-founder of Megagon Industries and developer of Lonely Mountains Downhill. All right, thank you. I am here with Jan Bubenik, a indie game developer. Jan, remind me, what is your title and the development studio that you co-founded?
The studio is called Megagon Industries. And my title, well, we wear a lot of hats. So I'm co-CEO, co-founder, but also developer in all kinds of fields. So it's a bit hard to put one title on that.
Right. So you are multi-talented.
I don't know, but sometimes if you have a lot of tasks, you just have to do them.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you have talent for it or not.
Yes. No choice. So real quick, me and my listeners, give us the elevator pitch for Lonely Mountains Downhill, the game that we're here to talk about it. What is it and what makes it unique in the vast mountainous landscape of indie games?
So Lonely Mountains is all about you and the mountain and your mountain bike. So it is about the best time, but in the end, it's up to you how you want to play it. So you can play it really competitively on online leaderboards, or you can just enjoy riding and exploring the mountain, finding resting spots, things like that.
So finding resting spots. It's interesting you said that because I just the other day found my very first resting spot.
They're well hidden, yeah.
Yes. So tell me your story. Take us from when you, Jan, were studying multimedia and communication up until when you started work on Lonely Mountains.
Well, in my studies, I mainly focused on 3D animation, rendering, so more offline rendering, so no games. I worked on several short films, worked on an animation movie. With my diploma thesis, I then focused on real-time rendering. So I kind of was bored with the long waiting times for rendering. And this and my passion for games, I looked at the several engines, with one of them with the Unity engine. And I tried to create realistic looking humans, so more from a shading perspective. And this was my diploma thesis in the end. And after that, I worked as a freelancer for multiple years in different fields. So a lot of still offline rendering because during my studies, I already worked as a freelancer. So I had my previous clients, and I worked for them. And at one point, more and more Unity projects came in. So people were interested in, I don't know, for some events, they wanted to have an interactive thing for the product or whatever. So I worked on a few of these projects. And then one studio asked me, I heard of a studio, they needed a Unity developer. And that was a lucky accident, I would say.
Okay.
And there I met Daniel, my current partner in Megagon. Yeah, I developed there a few things, mainly kids games, kids mobile games, which was really interesting. And actually quite challenging at that time because mobile technology was not that sophisticated as it's now. Like
Okay.
mobile technology, like making games with Unity for mobile platforms. At some point, this company kind of decided to dissolve into various directions, and three of them, one of them, said, "Okay, we want to keep making games together," and therefore we founded Megagon Industries. In the beginning, was just a company for our pet projects, kind of. So we spend a lot of time working as freelancers, but on the side we worked on some prototypes, and this was nothing too serious. But yeah, during that phase we released two mobile games, and then it rained and Twisted Lines, which, to be honest, I didn't really have any part in, besides some feedback. At that time, I was working on different prototypes. Some of them never actually saw the light of day, or whatever you want to call it. And at some point, I think it was 2015, I tried a new prototype. I had a mobile game with a scheme mobile game, actually. and it felt so nice. Just the steering, just going down the mountain. So I thought, let's try that with a bike. Really simple, one finger on a mobile device. Quickly I realized, okay, that's not really working, because skiing you can't accelerate, you can't brake like you can do on a bike.
Okay.
So the controls were more complicated. And yeah, but in the end, this was the point where Lonely Mountains was born. But it was a completely different game, not only because of the platform, but also from how it looked like and how it played.
Okay. Are you a mountain biker?
I use my bicycle quite a lot. So every day when I go to work, I use my bike. But mountain biking, I had a mountain bike when I was a kid, but that was not really what you would consider a mountain bike right now.
Right.
But during the development, more and more people, I got in contact with more and more people who actually do mountain biking. And at some point I decided, okay, I need to get a mountain bike. And yeah, I love it. It's a lot of fun. But I mean, the surroundings here in Berlin are not optimal for mountain biking.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Yeah, but I have a mountain bike. I love to ride it, but unfortunately not often enough.
Okay. I'm curious. So you mentioned that you are based in Berlin, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you said the mountain biking where you are is not very good. I mean, obviously it's a city.
Yeah, but also around the city is rather flat. So
I'm curious, how far would you have to go from Berlin to encounter environments similar to what we see in Lonely Mountains?
Similar to Lonely Mountains, I guess that would be the Alps. I mean, there are some really nice trails closer to Berlin, but real mountains in the south of Germany.
Okay.
That's
I'm just
700 kilometers.
Wow, that's far. I'm honestly just purely curious. I'm from the United States. I'm like surrounded by the woods. I live in New England, not near any cities. So it's interesting. A lot of what I see in Lonely Mountains actually looks like places near where I live. There's a place called White Mountain National Forest, and it's only about an hour from where I live. So it's interesting. Playing that game really reminds me of being in these beautiful natural places. And I'm just curious, I guess, about Germany in general. And so you said 700 kilometers to get to the Alps. Have you ever been to the Alps?
Yeah, sure.
Is it gorgeous?
Absolutely.
I'm sure it is. That's a silly question, but I'm just totally curious. And when you made, like, I'm curious about the locations in the game. Are they real mountains, or are they totally made up?
They are made up, but they are based or inspired by actual mountains or like areas. So the first mountain, Kraterhorn, is actually inspired by the Alps.
Okay.
The second one, Redmore Peaks, is more like Indian summer. Yeah. I don't think it has a really specific location. But Mount Riley is, for example, inspired by the Canadian Rockies. So Daniel, pardon, was in the Canadian Rockies a few years before we started the development of Lonely Mountains.
Wait, and your partner, he lived there or he visited?
He just visited.
Okay. Is he a mountain biker?
Not really.
It's funny because I ask these questions because I am a biker. That's how I get exercise. And as I said, I live in the woods. So a lot of where I ride is on these trails. And the game really nails what it feels like to be alone in the woods riding your bike. And so I guess the fact that you guys don't do that in real life, I want to commend you for the ability to make such an impressive and like evocative simulation of what it's like to do the thing that you are simulating.
Well, I wouldn't say we don't do it at all. It's just, it's of course it's a difference if you have like real huge mountains, which are gorgeous and like really impressive. But the feeling, you can also get that feeling somewhere else. You don't need to be in the mountains, actually.
True.
Just being on your bike, riding some trails. And there are some trails around here, just not, the elevation is not that much.
Right. So I'm curious about the aesthetic of the game. Tell me about the decision to make it's low poly, correct? Is that the correct term?
Yeah, that's correct.
So how did that come about?
The funny thing is, the whole project started with a rider and his bike. So that's what the first thing I created, and actually that didn't change much over the course of the whole development. And I mean, the development is now 6 years ago, the start of the development, and in the beginning it was mainly due to the limitations of mobile games. So we had to, we couldn't go for really super realistic high poly meshes. So we tried to keep it a bit simple. But yeah, we showed it around at several events, and people started to like it. And back then, the style was still not that evolved, but yeah, people started to like it, and we realized, okay, it has something catchy. At the same time, we were just 2 people back then. So it was really, we couldn't go into full production with like super realistic models or anything. And also, I think it is good to have not super realistic models, because then having a more refined animation can shine better. But if everything looks like super photorealistic, if the animation doesn't look realistic too, then you quickly get into problems. So it quickly becomes unbelievable.
Right.
But if the visual style is more stylized, then it simply it works better.
Yes, I agree. I want to say that I think it's a absolutely beautiful game. I'm sure that you hear that often, from the way it looks, the way it plays, and also the sound design. I noticed that there's no music in the game. Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. The first time we thought about actually putting music in was when we made a green light trailer. So back in 2000, when was it? 17? Yeah. We wanted to put the game on Steam, and for that we needed to pass a green light campaign. So basically, that has been green light is not a thing anymore. Actually, a few months after we did it. So we made a trailer, and during that trailer, making the trailer, we thought about, okay, what music do we need for that? Because having no music at all in a trailer feels weird.
Right.
And then we put some punkish music, I would say, which fits really well for the trailer. But in the game itself, it never really felt right. And it just reminded me of my core experience. If you're outside riding some trails, it's just you're so focused on the trail and the flow that you don't need music. And music's actually changing your pacing. It has so much influence on how you feel that it's kind of distracting.
Yes, I agree. I found when I first booted up the game, I think you notice initially that there's no music, but now that I've played it so much, I cannot imagine it with music. I think that it's perfect without the music,
Yeah, and we tried to came up with ideas. Okay, what kind of music would fit, but we never found a solution. And in the end, we all agreed on it's better without music, and that's the feedback we get from all sides. That's really crazy. Awesome. Didn't expect that.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it's made in Unity?
Yes.
So I as a gamer know vaguely what that means, but maybe explain. Unity is a game engine, right?
Exactly.
So maybe tell me about like why you work in Unity. What does Unity provide that other engines don't? Any kind of insight. I'd be curious, and my listeners would be too.
Well, there are quite a few engines out there. several years ago, it was really hard to get your hands on a good game engine because lots of engines were in-house, like developed by the big studios, and so it was really hard to get your hands on a good engine. You could license some of them, but they were really expensive. And Unity, when they started, they kind of wanted, what was the slogan? Democratize game development or something like that. So basically giving access to everybody for free. So you can use the engine. There's a huge community. They built a lot of people are using it. So you can have a lot of online resources. So if you have a problem, someone else, it's always someone else had that problem before. So it's easy to find solutions. But there are other engines out there. Unreal Engine, for example, is well known, and several others. In the end, we decided to use Unity because we worked with Unity for such a long time, and it was just the obvious choice for us.
Okay.
So,
I'm curious too. I bought the game on Switch. That's how I experienced it. And it says when you boot it up that it's powered by Kickstarter.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
Well, in 2015, when the first prototype was born, there was no real plan for, no roadmap or anything for the game. It was just a prototype, iterating on it, getting some feedback. In 2016, we showed some GIFs, some videos online, and some social media communities. And the feedback was so overwhelming at that point, at least for us, that we decided, okay, we have to change something. We can't just do that as a side project now.
Right.
And after long discussions, early 2017, we decided, okay, we really need to focus on it. But that means we need somehow to pay our rent and everything. So we applied for state funding. And at the same time, we planned a Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter was then in October 2017. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a tough month, a really tough month. I'm not actually sure if I would do that again because just the sheer amount of work. But it was also really intense, and it was the starting point of our community. Our goal was, let me think, 35,000 euros.
Okay.
I think. And in the end, we hit 45. But
Awesome.
that's only a fraction of that you actually get because of taxes and some other payment stuff. Yeah. So, but it helped us to develop the game. We thought, at least at that point.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like it was a good and bad experience, and all bad experiences are learning experiences. So I can't imagine that it was, I don't know, horrible.
No, it wasn't horrible. It was just exhausting.
Right.
So a lot of work, but also at the same point, like I said, we started our community there. People who joined us back then are still with us. They are still active in our Discord. So that's also a lot of really nice things came out of that.
That's awesome. So I'm curious about, is this game supposed to be difficult? And how do you balance difficulty curves with reward? I think that really difficult games are only fun if the rewards match the struggle. So did you set out to make it, I mean, I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of trial and error, but at the same time, like one reviewer said that it's at once calming and demanding.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about
calming and infuriating.
In some instances, potentially I could use the word infuriating, but but it's fun and it's rewarding. So tell me about, like, how do you balance that and the decision to make it a difficult yet Zen-like experience?
Well, our goal was always to have a game which you can play the way you want to play, so you can really go for the best time. But in the end, that's not really the difficulty. I think most people who start the game, they can be a bit frustrated when you crash a lot until they realize this is actually part of the gameplay. Crashing is part of the game, and that's totally fine if you crash. We watched a lot of people at events, so we showed it at I don't know how many events. So I watched probably way more than 1,000 people play the game, and you quickly see when people get frustrated, and it's interesting to talk to them and see what actually is happening. How do we balance it? I mean, the game is hard, and it's kind of supposed to be hard. I feel like if it's hard and you realize it is a challenge to get to the finish line, then getting to the finish line in itself is already a reward.
Yes.
But to get really better, you need to play the trails multiple times. You need to get to know the mountain. You need to get to know all the shortcuts to get better. And that's why we added these outfits and customization and this whole progression behind it.
Yeah, because I noticed, I did eventually realize that it is the kind of game where playing the same level over and over again, you'll start to memorize certain things about the trails and how to navigate them. And I just think that initially when you look at the game, you don't think that it's going to be like that. But once you realize that that's how you're supposed to play, then it becomes exactly what you said. Reaching the finish line is extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
So
it can be still for me.
Right. So tell me about the leaderboards. Was that always something you wanted to include, like the constant updating of leaderboards and because it's Lonely Mountains, you're alone, but at the same time you are competing with everyone else who plays the game if you care to look at the leaderboards. So tell me about implementing leaderboards.
Well, leaderboards are mainly for people who play the base progression, like who unlock all the trails, and then they want to keep improving. They want to compete with others, and they want to have something to play against. So if the mountain becomes less of a challenge for you, then you need something else, and those are leaderboards for us. And I think we had the idea pretty early to include leaderboards, but we had it at events again. Events were a really important part for the development, and at events was really nice to see people coming again, playing again, to beat their high score and to beat a friend who played before or whatever. So that we quickly realized this is going to work out quite well for the game.
Right. And I was gonna say, like, I was honestly almost late for this interview because of how addicting the game is. Like, I was playing it right before I set up all my equipment and, set up this meeting. And I there was one trail that I was playing, I think on the second mountain, where like I couldn't beat it. So I was like, I need to stop and set up this interview, but I just need to get to the finish line. And I eventually did. So in terms of the leaderboards, the competitiveness and the difficulty, it results in a very addicting gameplay loop. So I thought I would tell you that, and tell you that I think you did a good job in balancing everything.
Thank you. That's probably most Daniel's achievement.
Okay, well, okay, that's interesting. Tell me about Daniel's role. You said he's your partner. What does he do versus what do you do when it comes to making a game?
Well, he's actually a game designer. So all this balancing is part of his core tasks. He also, he made all the trails, at least from a gameplay perspective. So doing the rough blockouts. In the beginning, he also did all the decoration.
Okay.
And all the UIs. So even the UI code. So he's also he knows how to program. I'm mostly focused on the code side, but also animation. some of the post-processing, lighting, which is something I learned back then when I made making films. But 2018 we had Noah, and Noah is our artist now, and he made all the mountains look like they look now. So most of the credits for how beautiful the game is goes to him.
Okay. I'm curious. So this game came out in 2019 originally, correct?
Correct.
And it was released just on Steam originally?
For Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox.
Oh, okay.
And Switch came out, I think, May 2020.
Okay. So was the decision always to make it like multi-platform?
Well, actually, it is played best with the controller. So you can play it with the mouse, you can play it with the keyboard, but with the controller, it's just it's meant to be played with the controller. So it was rather obvious that consoles would be a good target platform for it. But it's not that easy to develop a game for multiple platforms. And that's why in 2018, we found our publisher. So at that point, during the Kickstarter, maybe going a bit back, during the Kickstarter, we promised to release the game end of 2018 or mid 2018. And early 2018, we realized, okay, we're never going to make it. This project is way too big. We changed one of the core concepts, basically, like how the trails work. And that meant we have to redo quite a lot. And so there will be delay. We need additional funding for that. And also developing for consoles is something we haven't done before. So we need someone external who knows how to do that. And that's when we signed with Thunderful, our publisher.
Okay.
And they basically took over the porting, or like another company did, but they hired them.
Okay, so you build the game for a computer, I guess. I don't know all the terms. And then someone else ported it to the PS4 and the Xbox?
Yes, but this was not really a classic porting where the game is finished and then they take the game and just port it over to another platform. Okay. It was like a simultaneous development in the end, which is something I wouldn't do with an external studio anymore, probably, because it's way easier communication-wise if you have someone internal who can do that.
Right. Okay. Well, tell me about then. So was the move to Switch a traditional port?
Actually, we wanted to release all the platforms at the same time, but we just didn't make it. Switch was way more demanding performance-wise. So summer 2019, we realized, okay, we have to spend more time and resources on the Switch. So we have to delay it.
So why is it? Because the Switch is less powerful?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, in the end, it is kind of a mobile device. It has quite some power, but it has some limitations.
Okay. I am so intrigued about that. Because in the Hyper 3, well, I guess I'm curious about, like, are there any like unique or interesting obstacles for building a game on a Nintendo system or on the Switch?
I think performance is the key.
Okay.
And that's the main obstacle, I would say. I mean, there are some platform-specific things you have to consider, obviously, but that's the same for all the platforms. Each platform has their own things you have to consider. Even Steam.
Works. Right. So I'm curious now, what is release day like for an indie game?
I didn't sleep much that day. I woke up. So the release was planned for, I think, 5 p.m. here, at least in Germany. And I woke up after almost not sleeping, and wrote a message. Okay, it's already out on PlayStation, and I was like, "What is happening?" Yeah, but in the end, we found out that you can't really set a specific time on most of the platforms. You just set a day, and they release it whenever it is. I don't know. It depends on the time zone on the platform. Some do it in the morning. Some do it at midnight. So yeah, that was the first kind of shock. Not really shock. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but we're really looking forward to pressing that button. So this was not a thing anymore. But then we went to the office all together. I don't know, looking at a timer, at a countdown. We didn't really know what to expect. We had a few days before some press had access to the game. So we knew it's running. The leaderboard servers are running. But when the game actually launched then, so we all sat around the computer. When the timer hit 0, we pressed the button. And what we didn't know, there's a big green button, release game now, and you press it, and then comes do you want to send a message to the players? No. Do you want to do this? Are you sure? And so there's not this one event pressing that button, but you have to press several other buttons after that. But that was fine. The game was out, and then we basically just started looking at Twitch streams, looking through the Steam forums, trying to get all the feedback, all the bug reports, which instantly came in, obviously. That's how it is to release a game, I think. And then our leaderboard server started to crash. They were just... we didn't expect that so many people, which is a good thing, but at the same time was really stressful.
Right.
Yeah, but we somehow managed.
So what has the response been for the game? I mean, I've noticed that it's very well received pretty much across all platforms. What has the response been? Like, what have you seen? Are you surprised by what you've seen?
We are really surprised by the sheer number of people. Like, there's so many people play the game by now. I think we just passed the 2 million players in total.
Wow.
Which is totally crazy. So in the beginning, when we're talking about potential sales numbers, it was like maybe 10,000, maybe even 20, but that's a different scope now.
So what do you attribute that to? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, the game is somewhat unique, I would say. It is different than most of the other racing games. It has a different focus, like this focus on you can just relax with the game. You can just go for a ride if you want to. This is unique. We got lucky at some point. So quite a few opportunities we had were just luck. But in the end, there's so much more to it.
I'm proud of you guys. It's not, I love indie games. I mean, I don't think I've ever played a mountain biking game. I don't think I've ever wanted to play a mountain biking game, but I played your game and I absolutely love it. And it's interesting. Like, I only recently came across the term Zen gaming. I think a reviewer that I really like on YouTube used it. And now I'm realizing that Zen gaming is something that I am very much attracted to. I like the difficult, demanding games like New Doom or whatever, but the Zen gaming, it's like where it's at right now, especially on my Switch. What's your favorite platform to play your own game on?
I mostly play on PC.
Oh, okay.
But probably because it's just my favorite platform in general.
Right. So tell me, I'm curious just about you in general. Like, what kind of games prior to making game, have you always been a gamer?
Yeah, I would say so. Not really hardcore gamer, but I play a lot. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite game ever? It's kind of a silly question.
Tough question. Really tough. I don't know. I really loved the first Mafia game I really enjoyed Inside. I don't know,
It's funny you say that. Limbo is the first indie game that I think I ever played way back on the Xbox 360 arcade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like most people, I was just absolutely floored by it. I was like, what? This game is not $60. What is an indie game? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if have you played Inside? I really love this game from so many different angles. It's just amazing from a technical point of view. Like the whole atmosphere, it's so dense and so well polished.
Yes, I did play. I played Inside on my PlayStation 4, like sort of recently after it came out, and I agree that it is an absolutely stunning game. It is so amazing, and like you said, in terms of atmosphere, and it's one of those games. Like I literally think that it's perfect, and so it's weird to talk about it with people who like haven't played it because it's just like, man, like you just have to experience it.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And it's interesting. So, which is Inside low poly? It is, right?
That's a bit hard to say.
Because it does have like the same like his face has no features on it, similar to your game.
But I wouldn't really. Low poly often shows the triangles more in your face, and inside it's a bit more. It's a bit more hidden. It has. It's really stylized, but I wouldn't say it's low poly.
Okay.
But I'm not quite sure how the actual like trees and stuff like that looks like.
Right. Now you've got me. Man, I'm gonna have to replay Inside. I played it a few times.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You mentioned that you're growing your team at Megagon.
Yeah, we did. We hired three new people a few months ago, which is amazing. Also a bit frightening, but I don't know. When we started, we were just two people. Just I don't know. We didn't have any responsibility for anyone but us, so it was really easy to just do stuff. And if you want to do something different, then do something different. Then we struggle a lot, and should we hire someone? But we need an artist. Yeah, makes sense. So we hired Noah, and that was really one of the best decisions we made, probably. And the same thing again now with the three others who joined the team recently.
And do you find yourself now in a leadership role?
Yeah, sure, kind of. You have to. We're still defining a lot of things.
Okay.
So how do we actually work? Who's responsible for what? But in general, yeah. Obviously, we have to. Someone has to lead the company. I mean, Daniel and me, we are sharing all the business part mostly. So like finance, funding, taxes, and things like that.
Right. So I'm curious about, this is kind of we might have already gone over this, but I'm wondering maybe like a philosophical question for you, like in terms of gaming. So like how important to you, or in your opinion, is the visual aesthetic of specifically an indie game? So not necessarily the graphics, not like AAA games try to do like photorealistic graphics, but the aesthetic and the atmosphere of an indie game pretty much always is the reason I hit the purchase button. So like how much do you consider visual aesthetic? Do you just go with your gut, or like how much do you consider the consumer maybe? I realize this is a vague question.
I mean, in the end, if a game is good or not, doesn't necessarily have to be because of the graphics or the atmosphere, but it can be. So I would say it heavily depends on the gameplay. Some gameplay is really just you want to just submerge into that world and just enjoy it and the atmosphere and the graphics, and that's totally fine. But the gameplay is not that important. Other games are just minimalistic, and maybe I don't even like the graphics, but the gameplay is so addicting, so nice that it's still totally worth playing.
Yes. What about, have you played Super Meat Boy?
Yeah, I did.
Because that's one of those games where the gameplay is just so addicting that it doesn't really matter what you're looking at. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because a lot of people compare Lonely Mountains to Super Meat Boy because of this trying again, crashing, and instantly resetting.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, when I played Super Meat Boy, I was just fascinated how you just keep trying and you don't get frustrated by trying the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that was in the beginning we had some kind of a small delay when you crash and restart. But playing Super Meat Boy showed that you really have to get rid of that delay, and so it doesn't get frustrating. So crashing is not. We try to make crashing as less punishing as possible.
Yes, I agree with that sentiment that difficult games it's much easier to retain the player's attention in a difficult game or a trial and error game if the death and respawn is, almost no time goes by. So you guys definitely nailed that.
Yeah, that is really important. Really early on.
So, okay, I just have a few more questions. I'm curious, do you have any advice on acquiring a publisher as an indie game developer?
Well, there are a lot of publishers, and in the end, you just need to somehow get their attention. It's always good if you want to go for a publisher, then to have some kind of proof that your concept works. So, and now, I don't know, we haven't done that often. We were pretty lucky because a lot of publishers approached us. But in the end, what worked for us was going out early, not sitting in our office and working on the prototype and iterating on it, and then having something we think is amazing and just send it to a publisher. But we just released GIFs and videos on social media, and we saw people's reaction. We showed the game at events and saw how people reacted to the game, and then you quickly realize if your game works or not. And once you have that, you have a game which just people see and are intrigued, or they want to know more about it, then you can be quite confident that a publisher you show the game to is also at least interested and will take a closer look.
So your publisher approached you?
Kind of. Well, we met Ed from Thunderful at an event where he played our game. Back then, he was working for Nintendo,
Okay.
and he was just a super nice guy. Daniel kept talking for him for like the whole afternoon, and that was 2017, I think. Yeah, and early 2018, we met him by accident, more or less, at another event. And then he told us about a new publisher they're founding, and they are looking for games. And we knew he's a really nice guy. So yeah, let's talk about it. And then we quickly realized this is something that could work. So in the end, at Gamescom 2018, so in August, we signed the deal with them.
Very cool. That sounds like the best job ever. You basically just go around and play video games from talented developers, and then if you like, you say, "Hey, can we publish this?" That sounds so fun.
It can be. I mean, if you like traveling.
True.
A lot. But
Right.
That's nice. There's obviously more, but
right. I'm curious. I noticed you just put out a whole new mountain, which is an island, correct?
Right.
And so is that the fifth mountain?
Yeah, exactly. Eldfjall, it's called. It's Iceland-based. So we got a huge volcano, steep cliffs. It's all really based, surrounded by sea.
Very cool.
And I think it's probably the most beautiful mountain we have, I would say.
Yes, I watched the trailer that you have on your website this morning, and it completely and totally makes me want to go there and ride my little Lowpoly biker on your trails. And I haven't played it, but visually it does look absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, with the trailer, we tried something different. So before we had more focusing on the action, and here we tried something. Actually, we wanted to put the mountain in front. So basically, just wanted to have a bit more time to show all the different parts of the mountain.
Yeah, and I loved. I thought the trailer was funny too, like because I'm watching the trailer, like the little guy, he like rows his boat there, and then I saw him climbing up the mountain. I'm like, where is your bike, dude? And then he's pulling it up on a rope. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time with the trailers, but I think it's worth it.
I agree. I think it's the overall presentation of the game, like everything you guys are doing as a consumer, as a gamer, it's very intriguing, and I think you guys are doing a really good job.
Thank you. That's really appreciated.
And I think my final question will be, what does Megagon do? Like, what do you guys have planned for the future? I mean, I know you're obviously currently still working on Lonely Mountains, but what are you guys looking to do in the future?
Yeah, we just released a new big update for Lonely Mountains. So we have these daily rides now for a while now, and we got modifiers which change the gameplay quite a lot. So changing checkpoints, a mirror mode where, like Mario Kart, where the map is just flipped horizontally, and it is really challenging, especially for those players who know the trails by heart. Mm-hmm. And now they have a completely new challenge. Yeah, we will still work on updates for Lonely Mountains, but we are also working on a new project. I can't say too much about that right now, but okay. Yeah, hopefully mid next year or something, we have something to show.
That's awesome. I'm very excited to see what Megagon is doing in the future, and I just want to say congratulations on the game. And I am, yes, a podcaster who is interviewing you, but I'm also just a straight up fan of Lonely Mountains.
Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome.
And thanks for having me here.
Yes, thank you for coming on. Okay, Space Dreamers, that wraps it up. Once again, the biggest, most massive mountain-sized thank you to Jan Bubenik for joining me, talking about the game that they put out 2 years ago, or a little over a year ago, and so for him to, they keep working on it, and for him to come on and tell me about it, I'm a little late to the party, but it's an awesome game. I really wanted to highlight the cool things that they're doing at Megagon and just how cool this game is. I'm going to put a link in the description of this podcast episode for you to check out the website for Lonely Mountains, and there you will find ways to purchase it. But, of course, if you're a gamer and you own a PS4 or an Xbox or a PC or a Switch, I'm sure you know how to buy the game. You just go to the store, type in Lonely Mountains, you'll see it. It's very highly rated by pretty much everyone who plays it. It's an awesome game. I don't think if you do any amount of research, you necessarily need me to tell you that this game is awesome and worth checking out. And like I said, go to the website, check out the trailer, which we talked about the trailer. The trailer is so cool. It's just cute. It's funny. It's awesome. The trailer for the new DLC for the new island based on Iceland, which that new mountain looks so cool. But anyway, last time I'll say it, thank you, Jan, and thank you, Megagon, for putting out such a cool game. Stay tuned, people, because I'm going to do my very best to continue to interview indie game developers. I'm going to try to get advice from them on how to make indie games, how to just navigate that interesting world that's always evolving. I've always been interested in it, but now I have this amazing opportunity to actually talk to these people and pick their brains, talk about games, which is just super fun for me. If this wasn't a podcast, I would do it anyway if no one else could hear it except me, because I'm just fascinated by the whole thing. So go over to Instagram, You can find Lonely Mountains, the game, there. The username for Lonely Mountains is LONELYMNTS. Lonely Mountains on Instagram. You can find their website, www.lonelymountains.com. And you can find me on Instagram, @TheSpaceStreamers. Please follow me over there. Check out my pictures. I got, cool sci-fi stuff, cool indie gaming stuff on my Instagram. And I guess that's it. So thank you so much for joining me. Check out Lonely Mountains if you're curious. It's a very cool game. And keep on dreaming. Bye.